Hi, welcome to the video testing REST APIs with Postman. Test CRUD APIs with me, Nam Hà Minh from CodeJava.net. Through this video, I'd like to share with you about testing REST APIs with Postman. In details, you'll learn about the basics of Postman, such as what is Postman, why APIs testing with Postman, how to get Postman app, the key concepts in Postman. Then I'll show you how to test CRUD APIs using Postman. Test create API, test read or retrieve API, test update API, including full update and partial update, and test delete API. Okay, so what is Postman? Postman is a popular platform for designing, developing, and testing APIs, and developers love using Postman for testing their REST APIs because it helps increasing their productivity. And APIs testing is just a feature of the Postman platform among others. And the home page of Postman is postman.com. And why APIs testing with Postman? Postman makes APIs testing a breeze with its intuitive and easy to use user interface. You can manage API requests easily with workspaces and collections. And you can also manipulate all details of a request as well as examine all details of a response. And you can also save your API codes for later use and share your APIs with the world. So Postman helps APIs developers and testers increase their productivity. And how to get Postman app? Postman is available both on the web and desktop. You must create a Postman account in order to use the Postman platform. And both the web and desktop apps have similar user interface and are synced in real time. And note that you can't use the web app to test APIs on localhost. That means you must install the Postman desktop app in order to test the APIs on localhost. And this is the URL of the Postman app on the web at web.postman.co. And for the desktop app, you can download and install from postman.com/downloads. And note that the Postman app is free for collaboration up to 3 users. Okay, let me head over to the home page of Postman. You see, this is the home page of Postman, and you can download the desktop app for Windows, Mac, or Linux here. You can click product and get started free here. And here on this page, you can download the Postman app for desktop, for Windows, for Mac, for Linux, and for the Postman app on the web. You can click the button try the web version here, and you need to create a Postman account in order to use the Postman platform. Before doing some API testing using a Postman, let's understand some key concepts. Workspaces help you organize your API work and collaborate with other users. And there are 3 types of workspace in Postman. Personal, which is a default type of workspace, team and public workspaces. Collections help you organize a group of related API requests, and you can apply common configurations and settings for all requests in a collection. And request is a test for an API endpoint, and you can save a request for later use, which saves you time and increases your productivity. Okay, let me open the Postman desktop app on my computer to show you the workspaces, collections, and requests. Okay, this is Postman desktop app, and you can see workspace here. Currently, I have 2 workspaces, 2 personal workspaces. You can view all workspaces here and create a new one here. Okay, I click my default, my first workspace, and inside a workspace I have some collections. As you can see, I have 3 collections. The first one is REST API request validation test. And in the collection, I have request. You see API request. You can see the HTTP method and URL and the body of the request. This is the second collection for student API test. And I also have some API calls, some requests for testing student API here. And the third collection is for unit conversion API test. So as you can see, in workspace you can have one or more collections, and in a collection you can have one or more API requests. Okay, now let me create a new workspace for demo purpose. So I click the create workspace button here, enter the workspace name, demo workspace, and the type is personal. Okay, create workspace. Okay, this is a new workspace, and the first thing you need to create in your workspace is create a collection. Okay, and enter the collection name. For example, test GitHub APIs. Okay, and then in this collection you can add a request for testing APIs. Now I'm going to show you how to test Retrieve REST API with Postman. The first API endpoint I would like to test is the GitHub public API at the URL api.github.com/AutoCAD. And the second one is test an API on localhost, as I have a running application. It is about listing all products at the endpoint path /API/v1/products. And the third API I want to test is to get details of a specific product by ID with the endpoint path like this. Okay, and add a request here. And you see by default the HTTP method of the request is get. And let me update the name of the request is GitHub AutoCAD API. You see a public API provided by GitHub. And for retrieve or read API, the HTTP method is get by default, and the request URL here api.github.com / you can also test the default GitHub API at this URL. Click send, and you can see the response body here. But I want to test the AutoCAD API, so I type the URL is api.github.com/AutoCAD. Click send button here to make API call to the server. And you can see this is the request name, URL, HTTP method, and in the top is the section that allows you to manipulate the details of the request, such as parameters, authorization, headers, body. And the second part is the body of the is the response of the API call. So you can see the details such as body, cookies, headers. And with the GitHub AutoCAD API, it returns the body of the response is a picture of a cat made by characters and a random code here. And you can see the HTTP status code of the request is 200. Okay, meaning that the operation is successful. You can also examine the cookies headers of the response. You can see GitHub sets various headers in the response, you see. And you can click the send button again to make the call to the server again. And now this time you can see a different code. Okay, so that's very easy to make API testing for Redshift REST API. And let me test the second Redshift REST API, which is from my local host. So I create a new collection here and enter the name is product APIs test. Okay, and I add a new request to this new collection. The request name is test list or products. The HTTP method is get for Redshift API, and the URL is localhost port number 8080 slash API slash v1 slash products. Okay, so this is a request for testing a Redshift REST API. Okay, click send button. Now you see the server returns status 200 OK for successful Redshift operation, and the body of the response is a JSON document that represents a list of products. You can see there are two products here. The first one has ID 1, name iPhone 15, price 1099. The second product has ID 2, name Amazon Kindle Fire, and the price is 159. Okay, and now I can test another Redshift REST API, and I want to get the details of the product ID number 2 here. So I modify the endpoint path here. Append /2. 2 is the ID of the specific product I want to get its details, and click send button. And you see the body of the response is now a JSON document that represents the information of the product with ID number 2. You can see the status 2 OK. You can examine the cookies, the headers of the response, you see. And if you want, you can modify the request, adding parameters, authorization, headers, body. So it's very easy and convenient to test REST APIs in Postman. Okay, let me change the URL back to slash API slash v1 slash products. Click send again to test again. Okay, and I add another request. Right click on the ellipsis here, add request here. Okay, the name of the request is test get details of a product, and the URL is localhost here, this one. Click send. Okay, the response in the body here. Okay, so that's how to test Redshift APIs using Postman. Next, I'd like to show you how to test CRUD REST API in Postman. Suppose that we want to test the API endpoint path like this, and the HTTP method of the request must be post for the CRUD REST API. The content type of the request must be application JSON, and in the request body we must provide a JSON document that represents the information of the product we want to add to the collection of products. So we need to specify the name and price of a product to be added. Okay, come back to Postman here, and I add a new request here. to the collection product APIs test add request. Okay, name the request as test add product. The HTTP method must be post and the request URL is localhost port number 8080, this one. Okay, and now in the request we must specify the JSON document in the body. So here choose raw and choose JSON here and enter the information of the product to be added here. We need to specify the name of the product, for example new product, and the price field. Price is 789.55. Okay, so for testing CRUD REST API, you must specify the HTTP method is post, and in the body, you must specify a JSON document that represents the information of the product, and then click the send button. Okay, now in the body of the response, you see the JSON document that represents the JSON document of the newly added product with ID 3 here. You can check by running the test list or products request here. Click send, and now you see in the body of the response the newly added new product appears at the end of the list here. And you can also test the get details of a product API here. Specify the ID is 3. Click send, and you can see ID 3 new product exactly. Status to our OK. You can examine the headers of the response. Okay, so that's how to test CRUD REST API in Postman. Very easy, right? Let me modify the JSON here to add another product. Second new product, and the price is 100. Click send. Okay, status to our OK successful, and the body response. And if I run the test list or products API request again, I can see the newly added product ID 4 appears here. Next, I'd like to show you how to test a full update REST API with Postman. Suppose that we want to test the full update REST API at the endpoint path is like this, with the ID of the product at the end of the path like this. And the request method should be put for full update REST API. Content type of the request is application JSON, and in the request body we must specify the product information in form of a JSON document like this. Okay, so in Postman I add a new request to the collection here. Add request, name the request as test full update product. Choose the HTTP method is put, and the URL localhost. I want to update the product ID 3 here. Okay, so I specify the ID of the product is 3 in the path like this, and in the request body here choose raw, choose JSON, and specify the information of the product is, for example, Google Pixel 5, and the price of the product is 345.67. Okay, so I update the product ID 3 like this. You see ID 3 here. Okay, now click the send button. Okay, you see the server return status 200. Okay, for successful update operation, and the body of the response is a JSON document that represents the updated product information You see ID 3 Google Pixel 5 345.67 is the price, and I can verify by send the test list of products request again, and product ID 3 got updated here. You see its name and price have been updated. Okay, and now I want to update the product ID 4, second new product here. So I modify the request URL here, ID 4, and update the name of the product to, for example, Microsoft Surface Pro, price 890.78, and click send. Okay, successful to okay, and I run the test list of products request again, and the product ID 4 got updated accordingly. Very good, right? And if I specify the ID, an ID which does not exist, I should got an error. Click send. You see I got the HTTP status for not found. And similar to the testing of full update REST API, now I'd like to show you how to test a partial update REST API with Postman. The endpoint path is like this. The request method should be patched for partial update API. Content type, application JSON, and request body. We specify only the field of the product we want to update. For example, I just want to update the price. Okay, come back to Postman and let me add a new request. The request name is test partial update product. The HTTP method must be patch here in the URL. I want to update the price of the product ID 2. Product ID 2, you can see product ID 2 Amazon Kindle Fire here. I want to update its price. So I specify a JSON document in the body raw JSON. Okay, and I just specify the price of the product 1000. Okay, click send. Okay, successful. And I got the body response is a JSON document that represents the newly updated product. You see its price updated to 1000. Let me run this API request again. Product number ID number 2, price updated to 1000. Okay, now let me modify the request to update the name of a product. Name of product ID 1, iPhone 15 here. So update the request URL, specify the ID is 1, and now I modify the JSON document in the request body is the name of the product, iPhone 14 Pro. Okay, click send. We got an error here. Let me change that to name. That's iPhone 14. Okay, don't worry. So for now, the application on my computer just allows update of product price. It doesn't allow to update the product name. Okay, so I will just update the price of product ID 1. Product ID 1, the price here to another value. Price the price is 9000, for example. Click send. Okay, successful. Send. Okay, product ID 1. Its price got updated. And finally, I'd like to show you how to test delete REST API with Postman. Suppose that we want to delete a product with the endpoint path is like this, with the product ID at the end of the path here. And for delete REST API, the HTTP request method must be deleted. Okay, so in Postman, I click here to add another request, test delete product, and choose the HTTP method is delete for delete REST API, and the URL is localhost. I want to delete the product with ID number 2. You see ID number 2 is Amazon Kindle file here. Okay, now I just click send. Okay, and you see in the response, I see the status code is 204 no content. It is the status code for successful delete operation. Okay, and let me check test a list of products here, and the product ID number 2 has been deleted. If I try to get product ID number 2 here, it should return status code 44. You see, sorry, this is a test add product, test add product ID 2 here. You see, I got the status code for not found because the product ID number 2 has been removed. Alright, so that's my video about testing REST APIs with Postman, test CRUD APIs. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and share this video. Thanks for watching.